Bruce Wayne, in his high-level trauma-resistant combat armor, landed on the balcony of the Themysciran embassy with a dull thud. The electromagnetic system in his gloves was still radiating heat after the emergency grappling hook launch across half of Metropolis. In his mind, at this moment, were 47 different attack scenarios. An Omega-level emergency signal from Diana herself, Wonder Woman, sent to the Justice League. That was a level only activated in the event of a global extinction threat. Darkseid, a Brainiac invasion, an uprising of the Olympian gods. He kicked open the glass door leading into the private living room, his eyes scanning the entire room in less than a second. Thermal sensors, normal. Radiation sensors, none. Motion sensors, a single target, sitting calmly on the sofa. Bruce, Diana's voice rang out, as smooth as Mediterranean forest honey. Thank you for coming so quickly. Batman slowly lowered his hand, his expression unreadable behind the mask. Diana was sitting cross-legged on the long red velvet sofa, not in battle armor. She wore a long, flowing white dress in the classical Greek style, her glossy black hair cascading freely over her shoulders, and on the coffee table in front of her, there were no tactical maps whatsoever. Instead, there was a silver tea set steaming fragrantly, 2 delicate porcelain cups, and a plate of butter cookies. What's going on, Diana? Bruce growled, still in a combat stance. The signal was Omega level. That's right. Sit down. Diana smiled, the smile of a warrior before delivering the finishing blow, yet also as gentle as the way the goddess Hestia tends the fire. Because what I am about to say will change the fate of at least 2 individuals in this universe, and the future of many other individuals as well. Bruce did not sit. He stood like a pitch-black statue in the middle of the room, steeped in Mediterranean style. Report the threat. Diana sighed, pouring tea into the 2 cups. The scent of chamomile and peppermint spread through the air. Very well. The threat is the extinction of a lineage, mine. And the optimal solution to that threat, Bruce, is you. A silence stretched for 3 seconds. That was the length of time Bruce Wayne's genius brain needed to process the information, eliminate metaphorical possibilities, analyze semantics, and arrive at a conclusion that made his entire body run colder than the Batcave in winter. No, he said, his voice as firm as cold steel. You haven't even heard me present my arguments yet. I don't need to hear them. Bruce folded his arms across his chest, the bat symbol on his chest seeming to furrow. This is not a campaign. This is not a mission. This is a biological proposal. Diana tilted her head, a mischievous glint in her eyes. I'm not talking about marriage, Bruce. I'm simply choosing the father of my future children. And you, Bruce Wayne, Batman, the world's greatest detective, are at the top of my list. She stood up and walked toward him. Each of her steps carried the supple yet commanding grace of a Themysciran warrior. You see, as Princess of the Amazons, I have a responsibility to continue the lineage. The Council of Elders has been rather impatient. They want an heir to the throne. And I, as a being possessing both the strategic wisdom of Athena and a touch of Artemis's stubbornness, have decided that I will be the one to decide who is worthy. She stopped right in front of him. Though slightly shorter when Bruce wore his armored boots, her presence overpowered any physical distance. So, Diana continued, her voice dropping to a seductive depth, this battle begins. I will present the reasons why you must be the father of my children. You may refute them. We will fight each other with words and logic, instead of swords and batarangs. If you win, I will remove your name from the list forever. If I win, you will not win. Bruce cut her off, his voice having recovered its familiar coldness. In his head at this moment, the analytical processor was running at full capacity. He treated this as a hostage negotiation. The opposing party had made a demand. He needed to find the weakness, exploit it, and neutralize the threat. Very good, Diana smiled, returning to the sofa. Then sit down, have some tea, and prepare yourself, because this will be the most difficult battle of your life. Bruce reluctantly sat down on the edge of the opposite armchair, his armor emitting a clanking sound. He did not touch the teacup. Begin. Diana nodded, her expression turning serious. She extended one slender finger. First reason, genetics. Bruce, your physicality and intellect represent the pinnacle of human evolution. You have no superpowers, yet you have trained yourself to rival the gods. Imagine the combination of that extraordinary genetic foundation with my Amazonian bloodline, plus the blessings from my father Zeus himself. What would our children be? They would be true demigods, faster than Hermes, stronger than Hercules, wiser than Athena. They would be a beacon for humanity. Bruce immediately counterattacked, his voice without a moment's hesitation. Logical flaw. You are assuming the genetic combination will only produce advantages. The reality is that the mixing of human and godly DNA often creates unforeseeable defects. Look at the demigods throughout history. The majority met tragic ends because they could not control their dual nature. Furthermore, my intellect largely stems from childhood psychological trauma, a trait that should not be inherited. Diana burst out laughing, a sound as clear as silver bells. I knew you would say that. But you are forgetting one thing. I am not just an ordinary woman. I am a warrior trained to protect and nurture. I will teach them how to balance the two natures. As for the psychological trauma, do you truly think our children would have an unhappy childhood? With a mother who is Wonder Woman, with a father who is Batman, they would. Bruce retorted, his voice icy. Every child under my protection is in danger. Oh, that is precisely my next point. Diana winked. She extended a second finger. Second reason, discipline and moral boundaries. Bruce, no one on this planet has an iron will like yours. No one has a set of absolute moral codes as you do. No killing, no guns, always standing on the side of justice even at the cost of yourself. You have proven that time and time again. Our children will need a father like that, someone to teach them about limits, about control. She advanced a step in her arguments. I have seen how you train the Robins, especially Dick and Tim. You may not show it, but I see the way you care for them, the way you sacrifice for them, the way you hurt when they are injured. You are a father, Bruce. You have just never allowed yourself to admit it. Bruce remained silent for several seconds. This blow struck closer to home than he wanted to admit. Memories of Jason, of the long nights worrying about Dick, of the pride when Tim solved a case without him, all of it flooded in like an undercurrent. But he was still Batman. What you see is the training necessary for survival, he said, his voice hoarser. I prepare them with the tools to defend themselves in a world that never stops trying to kill them. That is not a father's love. That is strategy. Bruce, you can deceive the entire world. You can even deceive yourself, Diana said, her voice suddenly becoming unusually gentle. But you cannot deceive me, not today. She extended a third finger. Third reason, we are perfect counterweights. You are the darkness. I am the light. You represent fear. I represent hope. Our children would understand both sides of life. They would not fear the darkness like ordinary children, but they would also not be blind before the light. They would have the balance that took both you and me decades to find. This was a strong argument. Bruce knew it. In all the years of fighting side by side, he and Diana had always been two poles that complemented each other perfectly. She pulled him out of the darkness. He kept her feet on the ground. They had saved each other countless times, not just with strength, but with that very opposing nature. The counterweight to a demigod is not a man dressed as a bat. Bruce still tried to refute, but his tone had weakened. The true counterweight must be an equal force, not a human with a finite lifespan. Ah, so you have just opened up my fourth reason. Diana smiled triumphantly. She extended a fourth finger. The solitude of warriors. She stood up and walked toward the window, overlooking the glittering lights of Metropolis. Bruce, both of us are the loneliest creatures in this universe. I have lived nearly a century in the world of men. You have spent your entire life in darkness. We dedicate everything to justice, to the world, but never to ourselves. She turned back, her deep blue eyes looking directly into the slits of Batman's mask. I am tired of returning to an empty embassy after every battle. I am tired of victories that no one shares with me. And I know very well, you feel the same when you return to that cold cave. We deserve a real family, Bruce, not teammates cloaked in capes, not children adopted out of the guilt of the past, but children who call us father and mother, new lives, born not from tragedy or duty, but from love. The room fell into silence. Even the computer system in Bruce's armor made no sound, as if even technology was holding its breath, awaiting his answer. Bruce took off his mask. This was an unusual act, but he knew he had to do it. His real face, with the wrinkles around his eyes, the faint scar on his chin, and the deep brown eyes filled with ghosts, faced Diana directly. Diana. His voice now was the voice of Bruce Wayne, not Batman. You are asking me to create new targets for my enemies. Every enemy I have ever faced, Joker, Two-Face, Ra's al Ghul, all of them will target any child carrying my blood. You are Wonder Woman, yes, you can protect them against Darkseid, But who will protect their souls from the ghosts of Gotham? Who will protect them from my own legacy? He stood up, stepping closer to her. The distance between them was now only an arm's length. I am not a good man. I am a tool. I have turned my pain into a weapon. If our children inherit any part of my broken soul, I will never forgive myself. So you refuse because you care about those unborn children? Diana asked, a faint smile passing her lips. Bruce, by saying that, you just proved my fifth reason. You are already ready to be a good father. A bad father would never think of such things. She reached out and touched his cheek lightly, a gesture so tender that Bruce nearly shivered. You are afraid, I understand, but you are also the bravest of all the men I have ever known, and I am not asking you to change. I am only asking you to share the burden. There is one more reason you have not mentioned, Bruce said, his voice thick and hoarse. Lifespan. You will live for thousands of years. I, at best, have only 20, 30 years left before this body begins to betray me. You will have to watch me grow old and die. Our children will have to witness that. I know, Diana admitted, her eyes glistening but not shedding tears. And that will be the greatest pain of my life. But as you said, you are a human. And the beauty of humans, Bruce, is precisely that finiteness. The gods on Olympus live eternally but emptily. Humans live briefly but brilliantly. I would rather have 20 years of happiness with you and our children than a millennium of solitude. This was the finishing blow. Bruce knew it. Every rebuttal argument of his had been dismantled. Every defensive wall had been breached. But he still had one last card, an ultimate weapon he always reserved for the most desperate situations. Fine, he said, and Diana was surprised to notice a mischievous glint in his eyes. If you truly want my unconditional surrender, use the lasso of truth. Diana froze. This was a move she had not anticipated. Wrap it around me, Bruce continued, and ask me one question. Just one. If the answer is what you want to hear, I will agree. If not, this debate ends. This was his final gamble. The lasso of truth would force him to speak the absolute truth. But Diana had to ask the right question, and he did not think she would dare ask that question. Diana slowly unwound the lasso of truth from her waist. Golden light radiated from the lasso, illuminating the room. She stepped closer to Bruce, wrapping it around his wrist and her hand, forming a closed circle. Her face at this moment was both solemn and hopeful. She opened her mouth about to ask, but at that exact moment, a familiar voice rang out from the doorway. I do apologize for the interruption, but it seems I have arrived just in time for the climax. Both of them turned around. Standing at the threshold, in a perfect suit as always, holding a tray of freshly baked butter cookies in his hands, was Alfred Pennyworth. Alfred, Bruce gaped. Rarely had Batman ever been caught so off guard. What are you doing here? Master Bruce, I was invited by Princess Diana. She said there would be an important discussion, and she required a neutral witness. Alfred calmly walked in, setting the tray of cookies down on the table. But it appears I have arrived a little late. Perhaps I should turn back? No, Alfred. Diana spoke up, her voice full of implication. Stay. I think you will have a few things you wish to say to your master. Alfred looked at Diana, then at Bruce, who was still bound by the lasso of truth, his mask already removed, his expression revealing confusion and something akin to embarrassment. He sighed, the sigh of a man who had witnessed too many tragedies and hopes. Princess, Alfred began, his voice warm and steady like the English soil. I have served the Wayne family since Master Bruce was 8 years old. I changed his diapers, wiped away his tears, and watched him become one of the greatest men I have ever known. He turned to look at Bruce, his eyes full of affection and a deep sadness. But I have also watched him destroy himself for an ideal. I have seen him reject one chance at happiness after another because he thought he was unworthy. I have seen him carry young Master Dick Grayson in his arms when the boy had nightmares. I have seen him stay up all night by Master Jason's hospital bed. I have seen him secretly smile, a rare smile, when Master Tim solved a difficult math problem. Alfred paused briefly, then continued, his voice trembling slightly. And Princess, I have also seen him cry. At their funerals, alone, in the dark, because he does not allow anyone to see him weak. But I saw, and I know. He turned fully to Bruce, who was now standing frozen in place. Master Bruce, those children, though you did not give birth to them, you were a father to them, a clumsy, grumpy, sometimes overly strict father, but a true father. And now, when you have the chance to truly become a father in the fullest sense, with a woman who genuinely loves you, are you really going to refuse just because of fear? Bruce opened his mouth to speak, but the lasso of truth would not let him utter a lie. All he could do was remain silent. And Master Bruce, Alfred concluded with a sentence that was soft but heavy with meaning. If you truly did not want what the princess has proposed, you would have jumped out the window and vanished long ago. You are standing here, in this room, for an entire hour, as I learned from the security camera I installed myself. That says more than any rebuttal ever could. The room fell so silent that one could hear the biscuits cooling on the tray. Diana slowly unwrapped the lasso of truth from Bruce's hands. She no longer needed to ask that question. Everything was already abundantly clear. Bruce stood there, cowl in hand, his shoulders slumped. He did not look like Batman at all. He looked like an ordinary man, weary, who had forced himself to fight for too long and was finally brought down. "Alfred," he said, his voice hoarse, "you are siding with them. Master Bruce, I have always been on your side. It is just that the definition of your side in my dictionary differs from the definition in yours," Alfred gently replied. Bruce stood still for a long while. Then, for the first time that evening, he smiled. It was not a loud laugh, but a soft exhale of relief, accompanied by a weary but genuine smile. A smile Alfred had not seen since before that night in the alley of Crime Alley. "All right," he said, and that single word seemed to lift a boulder off his chest. "I surrender unconditionally." Diana beamed radiantly. It was the smile of a warrior who had just won the greatest battle of her life. But she did not cheer in celebration. She simply stepped forward gently and took hold of Bruce's gloved hand. "I promise," she whispered. "We will do this together, step by step. No contingency plans, no exit strategies, just us. One condition," Bruce said, his voice already regaining a touch of the familiar Batman tone. "The children will undergo basic self-defense training before entering puberty." "Of course," Diana nodded. "And no capes before they are at least 18. "Agreed. And I want a real date before we commence any biological projects." Diana laughed, wrapping her arms around his. "You will have to wear a tie, and we will go see a play, perhaps a truly terrible one, so we can sit and laugh together." "So I really have lost?" Bruce asked, half joking, half serious. "You have not lost, Bruce," Diana said, resting her head on his shoulder. "In this battle there are no losers, only two warriors who have finally found a common front to stand on together." Alfred, from a corner of the room, quietly pulled out a handkerchief to dab the corners of his eyes. He had been waiting for this moment for 20 years. He poured himself a cup of tea, smiling at visions of a future filled with dark-haired children running around the embassy, or perhaps even the Batcave. And it was in that very moment, when Diana Prince and Bruce Wayne stood by the window, looking out at the city, hand in hand, no longer Wonder Woman and Batman, but simply a woman and a man, that the true victory was decided. Not the victory of one over the other, but the victory of love over fear. And that is the whole story. What do you think about this? I thought some of you might also enjoy it, so let me know what you think about this video in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video and want to support the channel, please like, subscribe, and share the video with your friends. And we will see each other next time. Thank you very much.